This is the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm Eric Balkman from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Better Sports Network, and the FFPC. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman and the FFPC on X at FFPC. Before we get into the show, I want to remind everyone that you can get a listeners-only 10% discount to RotoViz by using the code RVRadio2025. That's RV Radio 2025. Your subscription gives you unlimited access to all of the RotoViz content and tools, and it supports the podcast channel as well. Now, without further ado, here's the latest episode of the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. Good evening and welcome to the latest edition of the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. It is November 4th, 2025, and we're so glad that you're hanging out with us tonight. My name is Eric Balkman. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman. You know me from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Better Sports Network's FFPC Insider Access Show, and of course, the Fantasy Football Players Championship, the sponsor of this program tonight. I do want to remind you to take advantage of that RotoViz discount code RVRadio2025 to get a listeners-only 10% discount with rotoviz.com. And I also want to remind you that the FFPC Weekly Challenge is live right now for Week 10 over at myffpc.com. In the Weekly Challenge, there is no draft. There is no salary cap. You just pick 10 players or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. Only one player per NFL team. So if you want Michael Penix, you can't have Drake London. If you want CJ Stroud, you cannot have Nick Chubb. One player per NFL team. Win up to $2,500 this weekend. 10, 30, and 100 team contest. That's available at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. I'll give you the update on who the guests are this week on the FFPC family of podcasts coming up at the end of the show. Right now, I want to bring on our first guest of the week and the guest for tonight's show, the guest co-host. This is a guy who has played in the FFPC for well over a decade, has 64 high-stakes titles to his name, and currently sits in 19th place overall in the FFPC Big Gorilla competition, a contest that will pay a $1 million grand prize. And he's only got 18 teams above him as he tries to secure that seven-figure payout. Please welcome back onto the program, the one, the only, the Kuekes. Good evening, Kurt. How's it going, man?
It's going well. I really had second thoughts of talking to you tonight because the last time I talked to you, I think I was leading the main event for 8 weeks as the highest scorer. We had a little talk on the computer, and I think I went into the contest and finished about 800. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I hold myself personally responsible for that. I will say there was another time. I think the time before that you came on this show, this was like, I don't know, man, like 6-7 years ago or so. And I asked you to come on. You're like, I'm having a horrible season. Why do you want to talk to me? I said, I always like talking to you. And I do feel like you made a little bit of a comeback after your appearance on that show. So sometimes it can go both ways. How is the fantasy season overall treating you? I mean, I just said you're 19th overall in the Big Gorilla. Obviously, haven't gotten to the big payouts yet. But by and large, how are your teams looking?
They're looking very well. I think part of my strategy this year is I cut way back on the number of teams. No more 200-team seasons for me. With travel for work, it's just way too much. But I've got some teams that are looking very strong. I got a 9-0 team, some 7-1, 6-2s. Got a couple. Got the 19th one, and I've got one in the top 150, I think, too. So. Oh,
which is fantastic. So you are loaded for bear, my friend. So going forward, this could be an epic end of the 2025 season for you. Are you wearing a Kyler Murray jersey tonight? There it is.
Go.
Kyler
yeah.
Murray.
Yep, Kyler Murray. Can't stand him, but
but you wear his jersey.
Because I spend most of my life in Arizona now, so I'm trying to support the team, and my Marvin Harrison Jr. jersey hasn't arrived yet.
Shouldn't you be wearing a Jacoby Brissett jersey now, based on what Jonathan Gannon said today?
I'm going to get a red pen and change the number here. Yeah.
I was at the Packers-Panthers game at Lambeau Field on Sunday, and I
Ooh,
saw,
ouch.
yeah, it wasn't fun. I saw a guy wearing an Aaron Rodgers Packers jersey where he literally took like white, it wasn't duct tape. I don't know what kind of tape it was, but he taped over the two, turned it into a zero, drew on it so it would be easy to see as a zero, and then he put the white tape over the Rodgers name and put love on top of it. And I was there with my brother, and I said to him, that is a man who desperately needs a surge in income so he can buy a Jordan Love jersey. It was not a good look, man. It was not a good look at all.
Not at all.
Let's get into it tonight.
Sure.
NFL trade deadline today, Kurt. We saw a few trades go down. Actually, we saw more than a few, but a couple of them affected fantasy. I want to tackle Jakobi Meyers here first. Do you feel he is in a better or worse spot for fantasy now that he's moved from Las Vegas to Jacksonville? Is this a step up for him? And I guess what in order to answer this question properly, and maybe you're not going to be able to because we don't know how significant the Travis Hunter is. We know he's out at least 3 more games. We also don't know how significant the Brian Thomas Jr. Injury is. He left with an ankle injury on Sunday too. So there's a lot to unpack here with Meyers.
Right. And was it Parker Washington is looking pretty good down there as the only receiver. So I think for Jakobi, I mean, he wasn't getting a whole lot in Las Vegas. I think he'll do better down in Jacksonville. But to be honest with you, I really don't want much of that offense at all. I've got a few shares of the QB who will go unmentioned. I've got some ETN. I like the ETN shares I have, and I've got some of Tootin too. But the receivers have hurt me. I've got Thomas, who has obviously not done well, and I've got Hunter, who hopefully won't be out more than 4 weeks. But I think Jakobi would be better off down in Jacksonville. And because of that, I think, people like Trey Tucker and Bex will be pretty good up in Oakland. I want to say Oakland. I can't believe that they're moved from Oakland.
I still get people calling them Los Angeles from time to time, Kurt. Like they've been all over. The Raiders have been to Oakland, to Los Angeles, back to Oakland, now to Las Vegas. It's crazy. Regarding Trey Tucker and Jack Besh, if you could only roster one of these guys, would it be Tucker, or do you prefer Besh now that Meyers is out of town?
I like Tucker. I found him on the waiver wire in a few places last week and picked him up. I've also picked up Besh just to stash him too. So, I'll kind of see who does what. I don't see starting either one of them unless it's a kind of a bye week or injury situation. But I think it'd be silly not to take a shot on either one of them just to have them on your bench.
I picked up Jack Besh when his routes run started going up a few weeks back, and knew that there was going to be a problem there because I always felt like Meyers and Besh are kind of a duplication of skills.
Same guy.
Yeah, exactly. And now you don't have Meyers on that team, which is good. However, and we got how many more weeks of buys? We got 4 teams on bye this week, 2 next week, 4 and 12, and then nobody in week 13, and then we have 4 more in week 14.
Right.
So that's the thing. It's like you're I don't really see anything good for Tucker or Besh, unless we have a Bowers injury, which we've already seen a couple of times this year as well. He showed how dominant he can be, but I would like to have those guys around to plug in if I need to fill a spot in my lineup. I think you could do a lot worse than those guys right now. I'm with you. I think it's Tucker over Besh, but I'm still in a wait and see mode. I'm going to try to be picking up Besh this week to try to see if something hits there, if lightning strikes, and we'll see what happens. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I agree 100%.
The Rashid Shaheed trade from New Orleans to Seattle, this reunites him with Clint Kubiak, who was his OC in New Orleans last year. And this is really frustrating for a lot of Torrey Horton owners who were reaping the spoils of this 2-touchdown night on Sunday Night Football this past week. Is it over for Horton now that they've acquired Shaheed? Not only do you have Shaheed and Horton there, but you got Cooper Kupp coming back from injury too. And obviously the supernova, Jackson Smith and Jigba on this offense. We'll talk about Sam Darnold a little bit. But I think like the Shaheed thing just totally gums up the works in Seattle now.
It makes it a little more confusing who to start there. I've got heaps and heaps of Rashid. So I'm hoping he does something up there. He was a guy who I thought might be moved. So when I was drafting earlier this year, I didn't have much faith in the QBs they have down there, but I know that he's got some good talent, and he did well last year for a while.
And that's the thing too. This has got to be. I mean, as much as it stinks that he's going to a crowded wide receiver room with Orton, Cup, and Smith and Jigba, but like the improvement from Tyler Shook to Sam Darnold, this is super significant. And I mean, you were always going to roster, but now I think we got to start looking at him as a flex. Like, you know, you get to flex the two guys in the FFPC. You got to start looking at this guy as an every week flex potentially.
Yeah, I think so. And in terms of Cooper Kupp, I mean, I respect his body of work. He's not a guy, I think I have one share of him this year. Not a guy I was after. I've got a lot of Jackson Smith Najigba, and I've got a few shares of Horton. So again, I've got lots of Rashid. So hopefully he does something up there. Luckily, on a lot of those teams, I don't have to play him. So I've got the luxury to kind of sit back and watch how he grooves up there. But I think JSN's the one and only guy up there right now.
Yeah, he's the meal ticket, and he's just absolutely flat out crushing it this year. Can I ask you, why were you heavy on Shaheed? Was this a bet on his talent that you thought like, hey, this is a guy I want to be in business with, given his ADP this year?
Yeah, the ADP was a gift, I thought, and he's got some good skills. He's fast. He's I like what I've seen over the last couple of years. He had a couple games last year where he blew up at the beginning of the year, had a couple long touchdowns. So yeah, I like the talent and I like the value most of all. I mean, if it was a top 8 round pick, I probably wouldn't touch him, but where I was getting him in the drafts, it made sense to take a shot.
Yeah, I'm with you. I grabbed him a lot as a 5th wide receiver, sometimes a 6th wide receiver as well. And I'm very excited to see what he does in Seattle this year. I want to bring up Kendrick Bourne here because I picked him up ahead of his back-to-back 142-yard efforts against the Rams and Buccaneers, respectively, Kurt. But since then, his stat line, he has not found the end zone yet this season, by the way.
Right.
But since those, he had 10 for 142 against Los Angeles, 542 against Tampa, then 2 for 14 against Atlanta, 3 for 44 at Houston, 2 for 34 against the Giants. Now, this is all, I think all 3 of those games were with both McCaffrey and Kittle healthy, but Pearsall has not come back yet. Juwan Jennings has been out there, but I wonder if people who are trying to fill bye weeks this week for players in their starting lineup, is it safe to release Kendrick Bourne knowing what he has done these last 3 weeks without Pearsall, that we're just like, you know what, maybe the magic's done with Bourne? How do you feel about him on a 12-team, 20-man roster right now?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, with Bourne, I like the fact that he's got a history with Mac Jones. So I think that's positive. And, there's 140-plus games were nice. Then he had the tough game against Houston. He had a tough game against the Atlanta defense. I don't think that's very surprising. With the question about holding him, letting him go, I'm going to hold him because Pearsall is probably my top 3 owned guy. And I've got him on the bench, and he hasn't done really squat. But I like the talent, so I'm holding on to him. Jennings has a new injury every week, or sometimes 3 or 4 injuries. But he goes out and he balls. He tries to play. So I think until they switch back to Purdy, I'm going to keep Bourne on my bench and just have him there in case.
I'm just looking at Fantasy Mojo right now. Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes Challenge, which, by the way, Kurt Kuekes is a 2-time league champion in Pros versus Joes history. But his website, fantasymojo.com, has all this data, not only for blind bidding, but for ADP and everything like that. I'm looking at the start-sit percentages for Kendrick Bourne. This guy was rostered in 81% of FFPC Main Event leagues after week 9, and he was started in 21%. So he's still out there. And I beg your pardon, he's still mostly owned in those leagues.
Right.
And I'm with you. Like I feel like, I mean, if I really need somebody, then yeah, I'll cut him. But right now I'm trying to hold on to him just to see what happens, especially, and I don't think I have Pearsall in as many leagues as you do, but I do have Pearsall in a bunch, and certainly Bourne has been helping at least stem the tide a little bit week to week when Pearsall's out. So there is something to be said for that. Let's move on to talk tight ends here. This is the FFPC. We're contractually obligated to have a tight end segment here. Let's talk Colston Loveland. An absolute baller game this past week. The caveats with this, Cole Kmet came into this game a little bit banged up, and he was going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are, one of the worst defenses in professional football.
12 touchdowns to tight ends so far.
Yeah, they've been awful against tight ends too, which is a great point. What's your belief level in Colston Loveland after what you saw in Cincinnati, Kurt? I don't want to say he's going to do that every week, but do you feel like, because he's a rookie, second half of the season now, we're feeling better about some of these rookies, maybe making a push at the end. How believable is Colston Loveland right now down the stretch for you?
Yeah, well, anybody who plays the Bengals, which is actually my home team, good for them. They have an opportunity to get a lot of points, but they're playing the Bengals, so I take that into consideration when I look at him. I think at the beginning when he got drafted and Johnson was talking about, he reminds me of Laporta. I think a lot of people probably thought, Laporta, he's going to do what Laporta did. Obviously, Loveland's got talent, but he's not a guy right now who, unless I'm hard pressed, if I'm hard pressed, I'll start him, run him as a flex if necessary. But fortunately, because it is a tight end premium league, and I believe in tight ends, he's my number 2 tight end where I do have him. So I've got that luxury of kind of waiting to see if he does do anything more.
When you say you believe in tight ends, what does that mean, Kurt?
That means I like to have a stud tight end. I've got, my shares of McBride. I've got Bowers. I also believed in a couple other guys that had a lot lower ADP. So I've got a good hunk of Goddard. I've got Ferguson. And I've got Laporta, all 3 of those guys on the same team. So that's a lot of fun. But so I going after those kind of high target tight ends. And then I, on my own, kind of just said, I like these guys. I think that they can contribute and make an impact. And so far, even a blind squirrel finds a nut.
That's true. Very true. 100%. Would you say Cincinnati's your home team? Are you from the Queen City, Kurt? I didn't know this.
I was born in the Queen City. Yep.
Wow. How about that? And then you moved out to the left coast years later, or what happened?
I moved from Cincinnati to Jersey, back to Ohio, to Pennsylvania, to Ohio. And that's at age 10. And then came out to California in 69.
Why did you bounce around so much?
My dad worked in personnel back in the day, and he worked for RCA. So he'd go establish a plant. They get it up and running. They snatch him out, put him in the next one. They develop the plant. So
I gotcha. And what was the favorite place for you growing up?
Oh, goodness gracious. The favorite place was probably Strongsville, Ohio, because we were about 10 minutes away from Grandpa and Grandma. So I could go out and hang in his big property and, catch snakes and frogs and all that good stuff. And
everything a growing boy would want. Yeah, absolutely. Theo Johnson's a growing boy. In fact, he's growing up right before our eyes in New York, with Malik Neighbors out for the season. Now Cam Scadaboo out for the season. Playmakers are at a premium in New York. They're trying to find them. They're trying to locate them. Jackson Dart's doing whatever he can to make sure that these guys are being put in the best possible position to get the ball and then make plays with it. In your opinion, the Giants take on the Bears this week. We just talked about how the Bengals put up 42 points against the Bears defense this past week. Why should or should not Theo Johnson be in FFPC lineups this week against the Bears? And how much Theo? You talked about some of these other tight ends you own a bunch of. You own a bunch of Theo Johnson right now.
Yeah, I like Theo. In fact, there's a league I own Theo, and I think it's a league where I seasonally kick your ass.
Yes, probably.
Gridiron Legends, yeah.
Yep.
And he's going to be my tight end there now since Tucker Kraft decided to go off and hurt himself. So that's unfortunate. But I think, you could do worse than Johnson. who else is there to really catch the ball on a consistent basis? And you've got Scadabo gone, Singletary, Tracy in the backfield. They need somebody. And, if hard pressed, I'm going to start him. I think, he's probably, I don't know, he's going to be the target guy there. He's got to be. I don't believe in those other receivers in terms of being consistent down the road. Well, goodness, you all right there?
Sorry. I was just, I went to move my mouse because I'm trying to see if we played each other in Gridiron Legends yet this year. And I don't think we have, but I do know that you are in first place in this league by victory points. We play each other week 11. So I'm already chalking that up as an L, as I am just barely onto a playoff spot. Ironically, Kurt, in this league, and I don't know if I ever told you this. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Last year, it was the last week of the regular season. And I had the Ravens were on bye, and I forgot to take Lamar Jackson out of my starting lineup. So I started on bye. As a result, I missed the playoffs because of that stupid decision. So I sent an email to our commissioner, John Duckworth, and I want to put this out to him right now. I'm like, listen, man, this is my fault. I don't want to make it seem like I'm tanking or whatever, because I knew if I missed the playoffs, I'd have a really good shot at the number one pick because of how that league is structured, or whatever. Right. And he's like, no problem. I totally get it. Well, sure enough, I missed the playoffs. I won the consolation or whatever, and I earned the number one pick. So I got Ashton Genty on my team. And I played this out in my head, not in my head, but I played it out on paper because of I would have taken runner-up to our good buddy Dave Gerzak in that league last year. And I've often thought about this, like, what would I have rather had in Gridiron? Because it's a dynasty league. Would I have rather taken second place that year, or would I have rather not cashed at all and then got Ashton Genty? It's a weird thing, like that, because it plays in my mind. I still don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, I'd take Ashton Genty.
But that's considering, because you're a good fantasy player and you know that you're going to be able to cobble together a really good lineup with Genty. And I don't know if I can. And right now, the fact that I'm hanging on to a playoff spot, I think is proof positive of that. Anyway, let's move on. Nobody cares about my fantasy team. They care about your and Kurt. Trevion Henderson this past week had the opportunity to show out because he did not have Antonio Gibson or Ramondre Stevenson to contend with in that backfield. And he ends up catching, 5 or 6 passes. He ends up getting 60, 70 rushing yards, something like that. Terrell Jennings still, worked in the backfield. Right. Kind of knew was going to happen. He's not going to get
the TD.
Yes, exactly. I want to ask you about Henderson. Did he show you enough? And obviously we don't know about Stevenson's health and whether he's going to be able to play on Sunday in Tampa. But did Henderson show enough to you that you're like, you know what, I'm going to give him another chance here in week 10?
He will live another week on my bench. He's not going to be cut, but unless I'm really, really hard pressed, I'm going to leave him on the pine and start some other players. I just worry about his use. I worry about, I don't know. I've got a nagging suspicion that he's not getting it. So we'll see. I mean, if I put him on the bench and he blows up again, then I'll definitely rethink that. I'm not going to cut him. He's the guy I was very high on this year. Taking him at the end of the third round at times, got him at 5-12 in one of the main events, the first main event I did with Dave Hubbard, and we were just beside ourselves. We ended up with Genty, Hampton, and Henderson. We were all pumped up. We had those 3 stud rookies, and we're hanging on.
Has this year's rookie class, you mentioned Genty, and obviously, the running lanes have been few and far between for him in Las Vegas. Not really his fault. But then Hampton, he gets hurt. Obviously, Henderson's underperformed. Quinshon Judkins has actually really showed out, so we've been very impressed with him. And then obviously Scadabo in that flash that we got to see him this year. Have you changed the way you look at rookie running backs, or are you of the opinion like, hey, look, all these outcomes that we've seen from these rookie rushers so far, this is all, in the range. Like this kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, no, I'm a believer in the rookie running backs. Always have been, and I've won some tournaments over the years with rookie running backs who sat on my bench. and then all of a sudden became relevant. And I think his name was Dave Johnson. I think he was a Cardinal.
Yep.
Okay.
He
Yep.
was.
Yeah. But one of the things I've had to work on over the years is my patience with players on the bench. Because, it's sometimes I'm like a little bluegill in the pond. I see something shiny on the waiver wire and I drop somebody, grab them, maybe drop the guy I just picked up this week, next week to pick up somebody else. And this year I made a really bad drop to get somebody. I dropped Dowdle early on. Yeah. And he was still sitting out there. And the week after he blew up, I went to try to bid on him and was only about $590 off.
Yikes. Yeah. That's
so I'm trying to be patient, especially with the rookies. I think even Reggie Bush started off slowly and won the tournament for who was that? Blanket on his name. Riverdog.
Oh, Riverdog. Yeah, absolutely.
Way back when.
Was this FFPC or NFFC that he won?
Might have been Wyckoff.
Oh, yeah, it could have been. It could have been. That's Todd, right? Todd Ullman?
Yep, Todd Ullman, yep.
Okay, Riverdog. I always want to make sure I got that right. Yeah, and I think like the thing I would preach, not you're preaching patience, which I think is really important. I just think rookies in general, if you draft these guys, certainly they are exciting to draft, the mystery door, the mystery box, whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, I think we have to understand that these guys do take some time to marinate and sort of adjust to the speed of the game. And so if you draft them, you have to be prepared for a slow September, perhaps even a slow October. And then maybe after the bye, that's when you can really expect that. I bring JJ Zacharyson up all the time. He talks about the track record of specifically rookie receivers who really come on at the second half of the season. We're talking about running back, and I think that can apply as well. But receivers really happens as well with how they come on at the end of the year. Question, or not even a question, Tom Smith in the YouTube chat right now. RJ Harvey seems to be coming on of late. And I'll say this about Harvey, Kurt. I like the production the last couple of weeks. As far as the usage goes, I feel like he's being really, really efficient. And I don't know if he can keep up this hyper efficiency that he has, catching touchdowns, scoring touchdowns or whatever. It's been awesome to see. I'm still not a believer in the consistency yet.
Right. And we know that the head coach there likes to run his dual running back approach. I took a lot of Harvey as well with the thought of, well, when was the last time Dobbins made it through a whole season?
That's a great point. Yes.
Never wish an injury on anyone. And I've got one team actually where each week I've been rolling out Dobbins and Harvey because I went tight end, wide receiver heavy. And those are the guys I got. But I do like Harvey's talent. I think next year Harvey's going to come into his own and, be something pretty good up there.
Yeah, and it'll just be like Sean Payton for him to draft another running back or sign somebody else. Got to deal with it, which quite frankly I'm prepared to do. Like I'm prepared to deal with another timeshare going on in Denver next year because the offense should be good enough. I'm willing to deal with that as well.
Well, one of the things that JJ often talks about is the ambiguous backfield. And with the ambiguous backfield, I really like those because oftentimes you'll get good values on both of the running backs because people aren't sure. So, I would have no problem, especially being at the end of a draft or the beginning of a draft, hitting back-to-back running backs in the same team, given a wide receiver and tight end build earlier on.
And oftentimes when you do that, you're usually proven right for certain portions of the season, right? Like we've seen where Dobbins has been the correct play. Now Harvey's been the correct play the last couple of weeks. And all it takes is one injury, and all of a sudden that now you're super counting on these guys, right? Because you can easily deploy them in your managed lineups, and you can do that with ambiguous backfields. Sometimes you can't with some of the other ones for sure.
Correct.
Let's see here. Question from YouTube. We got Ray C popping in. Is Jerry Jeudy a decent flex this week without Sauce Gardner? He hasn't been. And Tom Smith chimes in. I dropped Jerry Jeudy in a few leagues. He's been just horrible. And I will say this. It's great that Sauce Gardner is not going to be there anymore because he's on Indianapolis. Kurt, I still hate playing Jerry Jeudy this week in New York. I really don't. I mean, I like Fannin. and Joku to a certain point, but after that, I don't trust anybody in Cleveland. I mean, any pass catcher, I should say. I like Judkins if he plays this week.
If he comes back, right. I mean, the only one I'm playing right now is Fannin. I've got a bunch of shares of him. Some drafted. Sometimes he didn't go in the draft, and I was able to get him on the waiver wire, which is a nice gift. But Judy is the guy I've got in best ball. I mean, there's a handful of guys I'm willing to address in best ball at the right value, but I won't have them on a lineup league because you just don't know. And Judy's one of those guys.
And I think, like, if you do know regarding Judy, it's usually that he's not going to put up numbers. And so then what's the point of having him around? I'm looking at him right now. I'm going to go back starting in week 8 because they're obviously on bye this past week. Okay. 0 for 0, 2 for 17, 5 for 43, 2 for 15, 3 for 48, 1 for 17, 4 for 51. And his best game of the season came week 1 against Cincinnati. 5 for 56, has not scored a touchdown yet this year. I have zero confidence in this guy doing anything going forward. So hopefully that helps, Ray. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Yeah, I really don't have a whole lot to do here. Sticking in the same division, let's go to Cincinnati, your hometown. Taj Brooks was a player I had drafted middle to late rounds of my leagues this year. Dynasty leagues, like round 3, round 4, dynasty pick. And I thought that if Chase Brown were to break down, or if they didn't necessarily trust Chase Brown to handle as big of a workload as he did last year, I felt like Taj Brooks was going to be the guy he was going to share time with. That proved to be unfruitful. I've cut him in a few leagues. I actually picked up Samaje Perine over the course of the last couple of weeks in some leagues. Now he is dealing with a high ankle sprain, and Kurt, the Bengals are on bye in week 10. So knowing all that, how strong of a push do you think people should try to make to try to get Taj Brooks either onto their roster, or perhaps in my case, back onto their rosters here for the stretch run, knowing that he is going to be the guy behind Chase Brown, at least until Perine gets back, which could be several weeks away.
Right. Oh, he's the guy, a free agent. If he's out there, I'm going to target him. Oftentimes, one of my strategies is I like to pick up the guy when they're on bye, because sometimes for some owners, they're not playing, so it's kind of off the radar. I'll pick him up next week. I like to pick up guys on their bye week, and he's the guy I'm going to be picking up. Him and Schultz.
Dalton Schultz. Interesting. Why do you like Schultz?
I like him because where I've lost Kraft, I would like to build a little more depth.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's a guy who's out there. I mean, he's not going to set the world on fire, but if he can get me 9 to 10 points.
Do you have any other tight ends that you would recommend people look at, those people that lost Tucker Kraft, going forward, that may or may not be out there in the Big Gorilla or the main event? Like, I obviously Luke Musgrave is one of them for sure.
Right.
Is probably going to be the guy that steps up more so than any other tight end in Green Bay behind Kraft. I don't really have a whole lot of other good. I think Schultz is a really good name. But besides that, man, it's slim pickings out there for Kraft replacements at tight end.
Yeah, and I think, though Musgrave was drafted earlier than Kraft, I mean, he's not Kraft. I was listening to some talking head today talk about Kraft being baby Gronk, and he gets that yak, and he's tough. So Musgrave's probably not a guy I'm going to grab or try to get. Font is out there in some leagues.
Yeah,
being a Bengal, I might want to pick him up, knowing that he's got competition out there to get the passes. Also, Freiermuth is out there in some leagues. And I know it's always tight end roulette up in Pittsburgh. But the Muth is he's got some good skills. And again, if I need the depth at tight end, those are the guys I'd be looking at right now: Schultz, Font, and Freiermuth.
He didn't get traded. Any love for Chiga Okonkwo or no?
I like Chig going into the season. I got a lot of him, but then his playing time is getting chomped into a little bit.
Tom Smith chiming in. When is Brenton Strange due back? That is a great question. And we haven't really gotten a whole lot of news on Strange. I know he is eligible to come back here pretty quickly. But it's been a while since he's been playing, and Hunter Long has is not a guy I'd look to in Jacksonville, especially with the acquisition of Jacoby Myers,
Right.
today too. It's going to be difficult and then, the thing is, even when Strange comes back, he's a little bit behind the 8 ball. He's got to get back into football shape. He's, it's kind of a redevelopment of chemistry there. So, it stinks about Strange, but hopefully he gets back sooner rather than later.
And he's the guy I picked up for $1 in the last couple of weeks.
Hunter Long?
Strange.
Wow, Strange was out there in FFPC leagues?
Some people are dropping him.
Unbelievable. Well, I guess it makes sense. I mean, with the bye week crunch and with no news on him. Yeah, dude, that's a great pickup if you can get him for $1 for sure. Let's move on from running backs, even though we're just talking tight ends. Let's move on to quarterbacks here. Did anything change for you, Kurt, in the way that you think about Daniel Jones after a performance at Pittsburgh where he did throw for 300, the better part of 350 yards. He also did throw 3 interceptions that game. Did that change anything of the way you feel about him this year?
No, I like him a lot. He's not a guy I drafted, but he's probably on more than half of my teams because I sure as heck picked him up where I could. In fact, I dropped Dowdle for him, actually. So it kind of eased the pain. And but no, he's somebody who I will start unless I've got who did I start over him this weekend? I started Dak over him this weekend, which, oh well, it didn't turn out too bad. Only a few points, I think, difference. But no, I think he's got some good weapons too. I mean, he's got Pittman, he's got Downs, he's got Warren at tight end. He's got one of my other big own guys, especially in best ball, is Pierce.
Yeah.
When you average 20 yards of reception like he did last year, he had like 6 receptions and had 800 yards. That's pretty damn good. So.
Sigmund Bloom's been talking about this the last few weeks too. You're talking about the number 3 or number 2-ish receiver on one of the best offenses in the NFL. Like there's a lot to like about Alec Pierce.
Yep.
Getting back to Daniel Jones, would you start him at home against Atlanta this week over Bo Nix at home against Las Vegas?
No, I would probably go Bo.
Okay. And then the other one I'll ask you here, Daniel Jones at home against Atlanta, or do you like Jackson Dart at Chicago better?
I like Jackson Dart at Chicago better.
Yeah, Dart better there. Yeah, I think I'm going to look this up right now because I remember looking at the total on that Bears-Bengals game last week, and it was fairly high. I mean, I want to say it was like in the high 40s. And then I look at
wasn't it like 50?
What? Maybe it was 50. It could have been 50. I look at this Bears Giants game this week and it's 47.5. And I wonder if that one turns into a shootout as well between New York and Chicago. I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see what happens there.
It's great to see what Dart's doing, and he's got nothing.
Yeah. Well, imagine when he has something next year,
Exactly. Get Neighbors back and maybe pick up another good receiver. Hope I don't know if Scadabo will be back in time. That's a nasty injury. We see that Godwin, who had a similar injury, is kind of dragging to get back.
Do you how do you feel about this Tyrone Tracy Devin Singletary split that we saw where this past week where Tracy was basically like the glorified third down passing back and Devin Singletary got most of the rushing action? It kind of kills Tracy's value, and then Devin Singletary becomes a guy like you sort of gotta have to roster if he's out there, right?
Right. No, definitely. And he's got a history, I believe, with the head coach there. Weren't they in Buffalo together?
Singletary and Dable, yeah.
Yeah. So, so there's that. Whenever you got that connection, you always got to worry about that. Because the coach is going to fall back on, well, you help me then. But again, he's the guy I picked up last week where I could, just to have him, just in case.
I picked him up as well. Just when Scadaboo went down, and it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction now, Kurt, when I see stuff like this where starting running back gets hurt. I know that the backup is probably already rostered, and I'm immediately, I don't even care if I like the guy. I'm immediately putting in at least a minimum of a few bucks on whoever the third string guy is, which is what I did with Singletary. And maybe it happens for him, maybe it doesn't. But if Tracy goes down, all of a sudden you're looking at Singletary as a potential top 20, maybe top 25 running back going on. Although the Giants running back schedule, it's pretty bad for schedule against running backs the rest of the season. It's not great.
No, and they've had a tough schedule all along. And it's not going to get any more friendly for the running backs. Probably the running back I've picked up and dropped the most this year, Sean Tucker.
Oh, really? Just picking him up, dropping him, picking him up, dropping him.
Draft him in round 20 at the beginning of the year, just in case. Then you drop him, and then then Irving goes down. Then, oh my God, I got to pick him up again just in case. And then I got him, then he doesn't play, or he scores a touchdown, and I'm not playing him. So I punished him. I just cut him across the board. So he'll think twice.
And then after this week, you'll be picking them up across the board again, probably. Right?
Probably.
Yeah. It's the way it works, right? The Seattle Seahawks had a dominant performance on Sunday Night Football. Sam Darnold, 4 touchdowns. This was a guy that I picked up earlier in the season off the waiver wire as a backup, and I plug him in when I need to for a guy on bye or a guy who's hurt or whatever. And now, based on what I've seen from him this year, and this guy is like top 7, I want to say, maybe top 6 in MVP odds right now, Kurt. I think we have to start considering Sam Darnold as like whoever you have in front of him, unless it's like, Allen or, Jackson or Mahomes or whatever. Right. You kind of got to look at like, okay, am I sure that Darnold isn't my best choice at quarterback this week? He's been unbelievable.
Yeah, he has been. And he's one of those guys where when I see him available over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks on the waiver wire, I'll pick him up, just stash him. I could have 2 quarterbacks already. One team I had 3 quarterbacks. I still picked him up. Ended up cutting another one of those QBs, but he's a guy I've really liked. I liked what he did up in Minnesota. I like that he's got a good rapport with JSN. And their defense is strong. I mean, they've got a good team.
I want to go back to Ray C in the YouTube chat right now, Kurt.
Yeah.
Question: Parker Washington. This is a starter sit question. Parker Washington against Houston or Romeo Doubs at home on Monday Night Football against the Eagles. He was hoping that Brian Thomas Jr. got traded. That didn't happen.
Right.
And obviously Parker Washington's value gets dinged a little bit because of the addition of Jacoby Myers, but maybe not right away in the first week, right? While Myers sort of gets acclimated. So Parker Washington is going to be in Houston. Romeo Doubs is going to be at home against Philly. I don't think I really like either one of these guys. I guess I lean a little bit more towards Doubs, but I don't know. I could be persuaded if you feel differently.
No, I would lean Doubs as well, especially with the Kraft out. I own some shares of Green Bay wide receivers, and what I've learned is that you never play the right guy, or the guy gets hurt like Reed. But I think with Love and Doubs, they just have a good connection.
And Doubs, he does have a 3 touchdown game under his belt already this season.
Yes, he does. And without Kraft, I think you're going to see more of Doubs. We're going to see more of Watson until he breaks a fingernail and misses the rest of the season.
And Golden's dinged up now too.
Yep.
He's
got a shoulder, I think.
Injury. Yeah. So yeah, there's certainly could be a big night on Monday night for Romeo Doubs. And by big, I mean like 6 for 80 and a touchdown. I don't think he goes supernova or anything like that. But
yeah, I agree.
If you're considering Romeo Doubs, and I think you'd be pleased as punch for 6 for 80 and a touchdown here. We talked about some of the players already that you like off the waiver wire. We talked about Taj Brooks, Dalton Schultz. Is there anybody else, Kurt, that you're looking at right now in FFPC waivers this week that you think other players need to be paying attention to get on their rosters now?
Well, Horton's out there in a few. So, at this point, I'm looking at the running backs, like we talked about, putting Brooks on my roster if I could. The 3 tight ends we mentioned. The other thing I'm doing is I'm picking up some defenses. If there's some good ones out there, like Houston, New England, Tampa Bay's got a pretty nice schedule down the road. So if I'm fortunate enough to get to that big money tournament, I want to be able to have some options and go for the big upside on defensive plays. So I'll probably pick up a few defenses here and there. There's not a lot out there. The waiver wire Looks like old Mother Hubbard's cupboard.
It's bare. It is bare. Do you think that's because players are getting more knowledgeable? Are they getting smarter? Is there just more information out there? Because I remember it wasn't 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you could always seem to find a few gems every week, and that really the last couple of years has not been the case.
Yeah, 100%. With this newfound thing, the internet. We have access to all sorts of stuff, and there's a lot of good folks out there doing shows. You're doing your show. I listen to JJ religiously. I like Bob Harris. I like Nelson and his crew. Was it Fantasy Empire?
Fantasy Empire, yep, absolutely.
Yep. And then actually I got into the fantasy footballers because they bust me up. They make me laugh quite a bit. But there's so much information out there. I mean, I probably listen to 10 podcasts a day.
Wow.
Yeah, I go to sleep with them. I wake up with them, take a shower with them. When I have to drive back and forth to work in LA, that could be an hour and a half. I can get through one or two. It's really nice. And I like to get different people's opinions. I've got, been playing this long enough where I've got some good friends who are just really damn good players. And it put me to shame. Mike Santos, Dave Hubbard, guys like that are, just really, really amazing players. I learn a lot from them as we talk players. I mean, I draft in the FFPC with Dave Hubbard. Mike Santos and I do some other things outside. So I get information that way. I get information from talking or listening to the guys talk on the podcast. It's nicer than it used to be where you just had to do it on your own.
Yeah.
And I like to have differing opinions. I love listening to podcasts where they say this player stinks. And the other podcast says, no, this is the player who's going to be up and coming. And it forces me to be more critical in my analysis and kind of understand why I'm leaning one way or the other, liking the player versus not liking the player.
As another great podcaster, Theo Greminger would say, I think you're out there, because that I used to live in my own echo chamber when it came to podcasters, fellow high stakes players, or FFPC players or whatever it was. I would just, it was like a natural reaction for me. If somebody started talking to me and gave their opinion on a player that I knew I disagreed with, I immediately tuned them out. I didn't want to hear it because it didn't back up what my preconceived notions were about this player or, evaluation. And over the years of getting my ass kicked, I've realized that, like, hey, maybe I should open up my mind. And instead of just tuning opposing opinions out, I should be opening my mind to, okay, well, if you believe this is wrong, Balky, why is that? Why is this now? And so, and like you're saying, it challenges yourself to be more critical in player evals, draft picks, waiver bids, lineup submissions, everything. And I feel like I've gotten to be a better player that way by, opening your mind up to a lot more player experiences, player opinions, and people who've been, to your point, you mentioned Santos and Hubbard and all these guys that have won serious cash. Like, they've done it before. They know what they're doing. And these are the kind of people like yourself too, which is why you're on the show tonight. These are the types of people we should be listening to challenge our preconceived notions, to challenge how we feel about certain players. So we make sure that, whether it's our opinion or somebody else's, we're making as many correct decisions as we can to try to win big money.
Right. And also too, shout out again to JJ, because I really enjoy his stuff. And even when he takes you through 1 week why he thinks this guy is going to do well, and he blows it, doesn't get it right because someone else in the team stepped up and did something, and he'll go back and talk about the process, and he'll say, the process was right, it was just the wrong player.
Well, it's a range of outcomes thing. Like we can have the most perfect process. The most perfect process is not going to get it right close to 100% of the time, right? Joe Bryant from Football Guys always says this too. I think it's Joe who actually said this. This is a weird game with a funny shaped ball that takes strange bounces. Like, we can only do so much in our preparation before we have to kind of leave it up to the football gods, and whatever happens. Two more questions here, Kurt.
Sure.
One's going to come from Tom Smith on YouTube. Would Tyler Lockett be a waiver target now that Jacoby Myers is in Jacksonville and not on the Raiders anymore? We talked about Besh. We talked about Trey Tucker. Does Tyler Lockett, the crafty veteran, rejoining his old head coach in Las Vegas, Pete Carroll. Does that hold any water for you?
It doesn't excite me at all.
Because of the age thing? Like he's just over the hill.
Bowers is the guy there. And I think the coach, though I don't always agree with how he goes about things, and he's smart and he's going to try to develop the younger folks. So I think it'd behoove him to focus more on working with Tucker and working on Besh and who's the other kid, Thornton?
Oh yeah, Deontay Thornton. Oh God, remember when he was all the rage?
Oh yeah, I grabbed him week 1 of the season all over the place and don't have any more of him now.
And that's another guy too, where it's just like the dude is huge, big catch radius, super fast. He fulfilled a role on that team that I don't think really another person like could fill. I mean, Trey Tucker maybe to a certain extent, but it just seemed like the writing was on the wall. Like, okay, this guy's going to make it happen, and he just ends up doing wind sprints, and it didn't happen for him this year.
And the word out of camp was, "Oh my God, he's running as a number 2," and it's like, wow, far out. Let's grab him just in case.
Yeah, and I did as you did, and not. But that's the thing. Like you got to take stabs like that. Most of them are not going to hit. But then when that stab doesn't work, you take your stab at the next guy and then the next guy until something hits. So
exactly. And, I learned over the years, I just give myself as much grace as I can because, I dropped out. I'm scratching my head. It's like, how the hell could I do that? Looking back, there's 2 other guys who would have been more intelligent drops. When you look at their pathway to carries, but sometimes you just make a mistake and you learn from it and you move on.
Hindsight's 20/20 too. So maybe at the time it made sense, but and now you look down the road, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Nope.
Last question here for you, Kurt.
Yes, sir.
Besides Deontay Thornton, is there a player that you are now ready to give up on? Maybe a player that you have on a bunch of your rosters right now that probably won't be on a bunch of your rosters come Thursday morning.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe a player that you think FFPC players should give up on, even if you don't own a lot of shares of them.
That's a good question. I'm drawing a blank on that one.
Yeah, and maybe there is none that comes to mind because
that my teams are so damn good.
Oh yeah, I mean, like it's just, you can't find anybody to drop. They're all winners. I think that sometimes when I ask this, the way that we think about it can be poor process because you're thinking about this in the sense of, okay, who am I dropping this week? But like just dropping to drop. You don't drop a player just to drop them, right?
Right.
You drop them with a purpose, and that's to pick somebody else up. There's plenty of players that I wish I didn't have to drop, but I know that range of outcomes for different players means the immediate need for certain players are better, right? So I may not want to drop. I'm trying to think of a good example here. I may not want to drop a guy like Devin Singletary or something like that because I could see how he could be successful. But if there's a guy out there that maybe makes more sense, you mentioned Horton, certainly Parker Washington, at least for this week. Dalton Schultz is another guy. Maybe the range of outcomes for that, there's more successes in that range. And that's why you got to kind of have to bite the bullet. And then you drop somebody with a purpose to pick up somebody else.
Right.
Who could be a difference maker down the stretch.
Right. And I'll tell you, sometimes it's really hard to push that submit button.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to drop this guy. I don't want to drop him. Have I played him in 6 weeks? Nope.
Yeah. And I do that too. Like Adam Krautwurst, right? Deep End Fantasy Football Podcast. He always says, never drop a running back. Don't ever drop a running back, no matter what. And I've done that over the years where I hear his voice in my head every time. I'm like, oh God, which running back am I going to drop here? Don't drop a running back. And sometimes it's to my own detriment, but sometimes it could pay off. I think about Brian Robinson, right? He's basically done nothing all season. But then I think of this immense workload that Christian McCaffrey's had. And I think it's just got to be a matter of time before this guy is going to fill in for McCaffrey for a week or two. And that can really help me win, maybe in the playoffs, maybe in the sprint, who knows? But that's a player that I can't imagine dropping him, yet he's done nothing all season.
Right. No. And those are the guys that make me pull my hair out. I got me into fantasy football 100 years ago when we got our stats from USA Today.
Yeah.
On Monday morning. We drafted in a bar and you had to call your lineup in. It was always good. And we had stats disputes because someone said, well, the New York Times says, no, we're using USA Today. He used to say, think long, think wrong.
Oh yeah, that's totally, yeah. Think long, think wrong. Paralysis by analysis is another one.
Yep.
There, I remember I used to listen to sports talk radio when I was a kid, and these late night hosts on Sunday night were talking about this is pre-internet, obviously, and they were talking about a fantasy football league, and one of the guys knew somebody in the Niners like PR department or something, and he convinced this guy that Jerry Rice had a significant preseason injury and he would take him off his hands, for pennies on the dollar, essentially. And the guy's like, no, you're crazy. Rice didn't get hurt. Now he had no way to check this. Right. So he's like, listen, this is my buddy. He works for the Niners. The guy called him up and he's like, yeah, I heard of this way. He's like, well, don't say anything, but yeah, we think it's a pretty significant knee injury. So the guy made the deal and he gave up Jerry Rice for, I don't know, Neil Anderson or something like that. And then the guy found out a day later that nothing happened to Rice, that his friend fleeced him. And this is all stuff we couldn't do in the day of the internet now. But it was fun back in the day when you could pull stuff like that. Just crazy.
When I used to get my weekly updates from Grogan Sports, Dan and Kelly Grogan.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic guys. They used to fax it to the hospital where I was on staff. And the secretary knew that it wasn't supposed to be coming in. So she'd grab it and put it between some files and bring it to my office. She said, this came in especially for you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay.
God, it's just how things have changed. Some for the better, some for worse.
Exactly.
But hopefully things change for the better for you. 19th place in the Big Gorilla. If they change for the better, man, you're going to get right up there to the top.
And that was a fun team to draft too. I got JT at 3-1.
Oh my God.
I've got another team where it's doing well. I think it's the other team that's in the top 150. I got JT in the third round as well in that one.
I'm glad you took Jonathan Taylor at the 301 and not the 212 because it's much more fun to say you got Taylor in the second than in the second.
I got first round value in the third round.
In the third round. You love it. Kurt, you are the man. I always enjoy our conversations. Be good. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you, sir.
The Big Gorilla, the main event, in all the leagues you're playing in this year. We'll do this again real soon. And thanks for the time here on this Tuesday night. And good luck on the waiver wire this week as well.
And I'll look forward to our head-to-head in Gridiron Legends.
Yeah. Saddle up week 11. I got to start working on the waiver wire. So I'm all prepped and ready to go to take on the champ take on the future champ in week 11. I'm very excited.
Future champ.
Future champ.
Fingers crossed. Hey, it's a pleasure, Balky. My best to you and your family and the family over at FFPC. You guys are fantastic. Put on a great product. And looking forward to going back. I took my son to Vegas this year, my youngest son, and he drafted with me, and it was pretty amazing. He had a good time. He kept saying, best time ever. So we'll see you out there in Vegas, and good luck to everyone who's watching.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kurt. Take care, man.
You too. Bye-bye.
Kurt Kuekes, ladies and gentlemen, the 64-time FFPC league winner, joining me on the high stakes lowdown tonight. 19th place in the FFPC Big Gorilla, and of course, another team in the top 150 in the Big Gorilla as well. Hopefully, we helped you out tonight with the trade deadline today, with the waiver wire coming up in the FFPC tomorrow, and a big week 10 coming up. We're into the double-digit weeks already, which is going to be fun. As we're getting closer and closer to awarding those $1 million grand prizes in the FFPC this year. I want to thank Kurt Kuekes for hopping aboard tonight. We will be live next Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern time on the show. Let you know who's coming on that show sometime later this week. FFPC Insider Access on Better Sports Network is live this Thursday. You heard Kurt mention him. He is one of the co-hosts of the Fantasy Empire podcast on the Player Profiler Fantasy Football Network. The 2016 FFPC Main Event co-champion Nelson Sousa is going to join me on behalf of FTN and Player Profiler. So that's going to be a fun 2 hours Thursday night. We got Raiders Broncos coming up on Thursday night. We'll be with you for the first quarter plus of that game. And then live Friday night, Farrell and I are back at it on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, live at 10 p.m. Eastern time. we'll have another great guest for you, getting you into Week 10 as well. Speaking of Week 10, the Week 10 FFPC Weekly Challenge is live right now. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. Only one player per NFL team. So if you want Dalton Schultz, you can't have Nico Collins. If you want Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, you cannot have Zach Ertz. One player per team. Went up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100-team contests available now, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, get notified each and every time we go live, which will, of course, be this coming Thursday, Insider Access with Nelson Sousa and myself, 7 to 9 Eastern, right here on the FFPC YouTube, socials, and the Better Sports Network. This has been a lot of fun. It's been the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. Thank you so much for watching, listening, streaming, downloading, playing it, and we'll be back next Tuesday. Good luck in Week 10, everybody. Talk with you on Thursday night.
Thank you for listening to the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. And thanks to Grapes for our theme music. Please review the podcast on Apple Podcasts under the RotoViz radio feed. It helps us find new listeners. Contact us via email at rotovizradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you think, and connect with us on X at RotoVizRadio. Remember, you can always support the show by subscribing to RotoViz at a 10% discount using the code RVRadio2025. That's RVRADIO2025 through the NFL Podcast homepage at rotoviz.com/podcast.